The long 6.5-month wait is finally over. BSSN is finally back. This episode will feature myself, Blake Wright, and David Shealy as we discuss arguably the biggest WWE news that has broke this summer, the WWE Draft. We'll talk specifically about why the last draft didn't work, if there should be one or two world championships, NXT's future, and how the draft affects the NXT product. And then we'll wrap it up with storylines with the WWE Draft David and I would personally book. I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. Thanks so much for your patience, and BSSN is finally back. You are listening to the BSSN Podcast with your hosts Blake Wright and David Shealy. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome and thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to the show. Joining me via Skype, we got the lead anchor of BSSN, David Shealy. David, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. We're finally back. Feels good to get back on this BSSN thing, man.
Absolutely. And guys, also, there's been some new things that we've added. Be sure to check out our website, bssnpodcast.weebly.com, and Weebly is spelled Weebly. There's some cool, nifty pages on there. Also, if you ever want to talk wrestling or have any questions about the show, be sure to tweet us at BSSN Podcast. That's one word. There's no underscores. There's no periods. Just at BSSN Podcast. And also, talking about our schedule. So this week, you guys are going to get a little bit spoiled. Obviously, today, Monday, you guys are going to be getting an episode about the WWE Draft. On Wednesdays, you're going to be getting a Raw review. And then also this Wednesday, you're going to get another show, a Money in the Bank prediction show. And then next Monday, we're going to have the Money in the Bank review. And then obviously on Wednesdays, you're going to be getting the Raw reviews. And then also in the future, we might be getting some top 10 videos. And if you have any topics you want to see us talk about, you can just comment on this link. Or you can just tweet at us or email us. And also, guys, if you happen to be a musician or have a band and want your music, yes, I said your music, to be featured on this very show, shoot us an email at bssnpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, it's bssnpodcast@gmail.com. All right, David, so let's get on with today's topic and talk about the WWE Draft. On May 25th, 2016, it was announced via Twitter that SmackDown will be moving to Tuesdays and be airing live on the USA Network beginning on July 19th. And on top of that, Raw and SmackDown will have their own separate individual rosters for the first time since 2013. Now, speaking of 2013 and the early 2010s, David, why in the world did the last brand split not work?
Okay, well, it basically one word sums up why the last brand split didn't work, and it's taped. SmackDown was taped, and that really hurt them because you can just look at spoilers, and that's all you got to do to figure out what happened on SmackDown, and you didn't have to tune in. And so that really did hurt them, and basically we want to get a little bit further, they didn't have enough star power. Especially after Cena was drafted to Raw in 2005. So when Cena, he debuted on SmackDown and he had that nice feud with Kurt Angle, and then he went on to beat JBL for the WWE Championship. And I mean, the guy was on fire. Obviously, he became the face that runs the place. And then he got drafted over number one pick of that draft lottery. And that really did hurt him. And I think it took him like a month to finally get Batista over from Raw to the SmackDown, because the draft lottery took like a long time. And they kind of had. I mean, Batista was a star, but he wasn't John Cena.
Absolutely.
And late 2006 to early 2008 was, I think, the best part of SmackDown during that era, because Batista and Undertaker had one of the greatest feuds of all time. Those two absolutely tore each other apart. They had steel cage matches. Of course, the match at not Hell in a Cell, but at WrestleMania. They had the Last Man Standing match at Backlash. They had a tremendous rivalry. And then you just throw in Edge, and then even But what really did hurt it overall was that it was taped, and that's what ultimately led to the demise. Of course, the product just got bad anyway. They tried to revive it a little bit. Triple H was WWE champ, if you remember that, and then he was on SmackDown with that title. And I think, honestly, if there was a single moment I want to point at and I say this is when SmackDown started to become bad, it was because Jeff Hardy became world champ. And when Jeff Hardy became world champ, the legitimacy of the title just kind of went down, and no one really watched SmackDown anymore after that.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with David, exactly with what he said. For the past, let's just be honest, decade? We could just read spoilers about what happened on SmackDowns because it was always a pre-recorded show. It was never live. And here's the thing. If you're just asking an average person, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to read the results in less than 10 minutes or sit down and watch a 2-hour television show? In this day, in 2016, when this generation is all about getting their facts and their information as quick as possible, they're not going to sit down and watch a 2-hour show unless it's live. There is no legitimacy towards the show whatsoever. Like David said, there is never that big, overwhelming star since Cena left. No disrespect to Edge, no disrespect to Undertaker. But I think in order for this to work, they already got the right idea with the show going live, with their own individual rosters. But they need to stay consistent about it, because that's the thing. They would not stay consistent whatsoever with their stars. Randy Orton and Christian, I just remember that being one of the big feuds the last time there was own separate rosters. Randy Orton and Christian would be on Raw all the time. They have to respect it. So if someone gets drafted to SmackDown, they should only be appearing on SmackDown. And if someone gets drafted to Raw, they should only be appearing on Raw. In a way, they have to be thought of, in my mind, as two separate brands. Like, they're not in the WWE. Like, one's WWE and one's WCW. David, do you catch what I'm saying with that? Or is that too confusing? If so, I can reword that.
No, it makes sense. You want them to be two separate entities. You don't. They need to be two separate things. There needs to be. This is SmackDown. This is Raw. Of course, they both fall under the WWE umbrella, but they're two completely different things, and they won't mix.
Absolutely, and they need. I'm telling you, SmackDown, in order to get this show over, they need a top star. So John Cena needs to go to SmackDown, or maybe Roman Reigns, or maybe Seth Rollins. They need a big superstar in order to bring legitimacy to to Tuesday nights. I think it's the biggest thing. Now, here's another thing too, David. I know we were talking about it the other day. David has a close, trusted source. David, what did that source tell you?
So basically, the source told me that Jerry Lawler went out and told some people that he met with that there's going to be two special events a month. And one was going to be for SmackDown, one's going to be for Raw. And basically, that brings back that old thing to where, different pay-per-views belong to different brands. So if you remember, the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view belonged to Raw, and Great American Bash belonged to SmackDown, kind of thing. And the only time those two will ever meet up is at WrestleMania, at Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, and SummerSlam. That's the only time they'll all come together. And so I don't even know if they're really going to call them pay-per-views anymore, because think about it, they're not pay-per-views. They're on the WWE Network. So they're more like special events. So I think they're going to start calling them special events. And there's going to be the SmackDown special event and the Raw special event.
Exactly. So if I had to guess, they're probably going to be anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks apart. Maybe Raw gets the first Sunday, SmackDown gets the last. And obviously, they're still going to share the big pay-per-views. They're obviously going to share WrestleMania, obviously going to share the Royal Rumble, and obviously going to share, probably missing a few, SummerSlam and Survivor Series. But other than that, they're going to be going back and forth. So I think, David, when you told me that news, the first thing I thought was, all right, there's going to be 2 world championships, And David, you know it better than me. There is a ton of different opinions out there on whether there should be 2 world titles or not. What do you think, David? If you can make the decision right now, would there be one world title or two world titles when SmackDown goes live on July 19th?
Well, I think they're going to have to split them up. I mean, it's called a brand split, so split it up. I mean, it doesn't make sense for there to be it doesn't make sense for there to be one world champion with two shows. You have to have two champions. It wouldn't make sense to say, okay, SmackDown has a roster and Raw has a roster. Oh, but there's this one guy, he's a champion. He'll go on both shows. That you're meshing them already. You're not splitting them. So if you want to split it, legit split it. Have two champs. It's just there's a lot of guys who are worthy of being world champ. You could have two world champs, and then do that whole thing. I think who was that? I think it was Cena and the Big Show. And someone else that I'm forgetting, they had like the Champions of Champions thing about 10 years ago. And you can do that sometimes, but yeah, just split it up. I mean, it doesn't make sense for you to be promoting this brand split and saying there's going to be an exclusive roster over here, an exclusive roster over there, and then whoever wins the world title every maybe 3 months or so starts appearing on both shows. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. And here's the thing. I completely agree with David. There should be two world championships. Why? Because if there's only one title, one show's going to be left out. So, for example, let's say Roman Reigns is still the champion 3 months from now, and he's still feuding with Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins is on Raw. No one's going to watch SmackDown because he's not feuding with a SmackDown superstar. So there should be two world championships. There should be the WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship. I don't think they should unify them anytime soon if you want to make SmackDown a legitimate show. So I'm telling you, there should be two separate championships, and it's much better off that way because you're going to see guys like Kevin Owens, guys like Sami Zayn get a world championship because there's two of them, which will help out their careers, which one day will eventually make them an elite WWE superstar. It's just better for the future. So, this is what I think. With the entire brand split, there should be two world championships. One show should have the Intercontinental Championship. One show should have the United States Championship. There should be two women's championships. And there should be two tag team championships. If you want to make this brand split work, like I said earlier, SmackDown and Raw have to be two different entities. I think David and I are completely on the same page about that. So this draft, I think David and I, we completely agree. It's a phenomenal idea. Mid-carders are going to get more time. People are going to get more pushes. But one thing that the WWE has invested in so much time and so much effort in might suffer. And what might suffer? The NXT product. Because with this brand split, I'm just going to go ahead and go out on an assumption and say that the NXT roster is going to be completely depleted. There's going to be guys that are going to be called to the main roster that just aren't ready, and they're going to be thrown into the fire pit. And that can be a good thing, and that can be a bad thing at the same time. Maybe it's a good thing because they make the most out of their opportunity, and throwing them in the fire pit's the best learning way that they can learn the business. Or it could be a bad thing where they're just not ready for the spotlight. So, David, what do you think the future of the NXT product will be?
I think NXT will, it'll be okay. I mean, they struck gold when they had, the Shield guys down there and Paige and everything, and they've got some gold now with, Bayley, Finn Balor. They got a solid champ and Samoa Joe. I think they have some young guys up and coming. We saw them at NXT TakeOver the end. Was it Andrade Cien Almas? I hope I got his name right.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he was pretty impressive in his debut. I like him. Ty Dillinger, these American Alpha put on, I think, the match, one of the best tag team matches of the past 2 years against the Revival. That match was fantastic. So they have good talent down there, and it's not like NXT has done a poor job of developing people. If you think about it, Enzo and Cass, was put on the main roster, and they were already over because of what they had done in NXT. And it's the same thing with guys like Finn Balor and American Alpha. Whenever they get called up, we don't have to worry about them trying to prove themselves and trying to get over in all these places because they're already over. And so I think NXT does a between these guys out there that want to be professional wrestlers and these guys that really want to get into the WWE and be the best, then NXT is a great place to develop them. You just have to really trust the farming system that NXT is. I think NXT will be okay. The only thing that will really hurt NXT is if they try to move NXT. NXT shouldn't go anywhere. Triple H was telling Stone Cold on his podcast, I think a couple years ago, maybe 1 year ago, that NXT has kind of turned into its own brand, and that with it being on the network, they know their target audience, and the target audience is young adult males.
Exactly.
So, knowing that young adult males are watching this, they know the type of product that they need to put on. They know the type of show that they need to put on. If you try to move the show to USA, to Sci-Fi, to wherever the hell, it's going to hurt NXT, because now your target audience has grown. You're trying to keep that little young adult male thing going, but now that it's on TV, you've got kids watching and you've got parents watching, and you have to skew it a little bit. So that, if that happens, and I really, really, really hope it doesn't, they really need to keep it on the network. If for some reason NXT says we're moving to TV, it's going to hurt them, and it's going to hurt them bad, and it's just going to be bad. Like, I can't really think of any scenario to where NXT continues to be as great as it is now if it's moved. Like, I'm usually pretty positive about it, but I can't defend a move like that. And so NXT will be okay, just don't move it.
Exactly. I completely 110% agree with David. And a lot of people, a lot of close friends, a lot of my Periscope followers, shout out to all the Periscope followers that listen and talk to me every day. If you don't have the Periscope app, be sure to download it and follow us. The username is not BSSN Podcast. It's actually BSSN Sports. But a lot of people are always talking to me about how the roster is going to be depleted. Because, let's just be honest, David, when the draft happens, Balor's going up, Joe's going up, Bailey's going up, maybe Ari's, maybe Rude, maybe Shinsuke Nakamura, American Alpha will probably be going up there too. So a lot of people are going to be gone, right? But here's the thing. What those people forget, I'm not knocking them, is that every single independent wrestler wants to work at World Wrestling Entertainment. And there are some phenomenal independent wrestlers out there that want to work for the WWE. For example, okay, you can replace these guys with these great workers, because the target audience for NXT, they just want to see 5-star matches. They want to see great matches. They want to see the technicians. And that can easily be fixed with just a few signings. First guy WWE could go out and get is Ricochet. If you haven't watched Ricochet, go watch him. The King of Flight. That is his nickname. The guy's the most athletic wrestler I have ever seen in my life. Also, go sign Will Ospreay. He's all the way overseas right now. If you haven't watched Ricochet versus Ospreay, shame on you. Go watch that match. That should just show you why both those guys should have a WWE contract. Then go and get Marty Scurll, one of the best talkers in the independent scene there is. And that guy can put asses in seats with just picking up a microphone. You sign those 3 guys right there, and maybe get Adam Cole, maybe get the Young Bucks. The NXT product is completely saved. And don't tell me that not one of those guys want to stay in the Indies. No. They want to go get a WWE contract and be taken care of. So, David and I think we both agree that the NXT product, no matter what, as long as it just stays on the network, it will be A-okay. Agree or disagree, David?
No, I agree.
So, another thing that a lot of people talk to me about on Periscope is they love Adam from What Culture. If you haven't watched his videos on YouTube, David, I know you have. The guy does fantasy booking. I've seen him how I would have booked Breaking Up the Shield, how I would have booked The Unmasking of Kane, how I would have booked this, how I would have booked that. Well, David and I think we're going to give this fantasy booking thing a whirl. So I'm going to let David pitch his idea first. So the scenario that we have made up is that you're the head of WWE Creative, and Vince McMahon comes to you, and he says, hey, I need a big storyline involving the brand split. David, what do you book?
So this is what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and go to Money in the Bank, which is, of course, this Sunday, live at 8 on the WWE Network, just for $9.99. The main event will be Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Okay, this match has a big fight feel. Okay, Rollins and Reigns are two guys that have a lot of history. If you really go back, they showed it last Monday on Raw about how these two were, they got together with the Shield, and of course the Shield broke up, and how Seth Rollins cashed in during Roman Reigns' match against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and then Rollins gets hurt, and then Reigns ends up winning the title that Rollins, of course, never lost. And so now here we go. Everything's coming full circle. Rollins is back. Rollins is taking on Reigns, and Rollins ends up pulling it off. He beats Reigns.
I like it.
Of course you do. So Seth Rollins becomes the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Now, shortly after that, you have the draft that's coming up, the WWE Draft. And basically, Stephanie is in charge of SmackDown, and she drafts the champ. Why not? Of course, she's got the guy, or the man, excuse me.
The man.
The guy is Roman Reigns. The man is Seth Rollins. So she says, I'm drafting the champ. I'm drafting the man, Seth Rollins. Ha ha, Shane, I got one over on you. SmackDown's got the future. So then, in another good move, she also drafts Owens and Sami Zayn to keep that rivalry together. Okay. So now we're on SmackDown, and you've got Owens and Zayn going at it, and they're trying to figure out who the new number one contender is for the WWE Championship, because I think they're going to split the title. So it's just the WWE Championship at this point. And so out of nowhere, Stephanie comes out and says, okay, this is now a triple threat match to see who the number one contender is. Then Triple H returns, finally. Triple H comes out, beats Sami Zayn, beats Kevin Owens. He's the new number one contender, and his message is this. He's like, look, Seth, I understand you think you're the man. I understand you think you're the best ever. But let me tell you something. You have never beaten me one-on-one. How many title reigns is he? I think he's at 14 world title reigns.
Yeah, I believe 14, yes.
He's a 14-time world champion. Okay, Triple H is really the man. And like he said before WrestleMania, that title, he's obsessed with it. So now you've got on not Friday Night SmackDown, Tuesday Night SmackDown.
That's the second time we've done that.
Yeah, I know. It's really confusing.
It's tough, man.
I'm going to get it, though. I'm going to get it done.
You and me both.
Now we've got Triple H versus Seth Rollins, which is going to be fantastic for the WWE Championship. And all that does is help Rollins really get over, because, I mean, it's kind of the same story if you think about it, where Triple H, he got hurt, and then he came back, and everybody was so excited to see him, and then he was whooping everybody's ass. So it's kind of the same thing to where he's helping Seth Rollins out coming from injury. He's like, okay, yeah, you're the champ, and you beat Reigns, but, Reigns, everybody doesn't really like Reigns. You got to beat me. And so you got that rivalry. Now over on Raw now has the World Heavyweight Championship, and it's vacant right now. So it's like, okay, so what do we do? So Reigns is like, well, you know what? I lost my WWE Championship, but let me go ahead and get the World Heavyweight Championship. And it's like, hold on, wait a minute. And then we have the winner of the Styles and Cena match, which is probably going to be Cena.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. It might be Cena. And Cena says, all right, look, I won the match versus AJ Styles, and now we've got Cena versus Reigns for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship. And then Raw is set. And, of course, Styles will still be in the mix, and, of course, Raw will still have its own firepower. But think about, we've got two young guys going against two veteran guys.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got guys that main event to WrestleMania 32 and guys that WrestleMania 32 and won the title at WrestleMania 31, going against guys that main evented WrestleMania 22. You see what I'm saying?
I like it.
We've got young guys putting over, or we got old guys putting over new guys. So that way, you really know that we have two different brands with two different stars that you really, these guys are over. We're like pounding it down your throats that we have two legit number one guys on two different shows.
Absolutely. I love it. I absolutely love it. I like the fact that, and hopefully, now, little bonus question here. I don't know if you have this prepared or not, but do Rollins and Reigns, do they go over and become the champs or no?
I didn't get that far. I think the SummerSlam main event at this point would definitely be Triple H versus Seth Rollins.
Absolutely.
Seth's going to end up retaining.
Yeah.
I think with the vacant championship, it might go to Cena, just because Cena hasn't had a world title reign in a little bit.
And to make him a 16-time champ.
Yeah, and then it'd be the record. So I think that would look good. And it would just make a great story to add a Styles versus Cena match, possibly at TLC, which would be awesome.
Yeah. I'd love it. A phenomenal forearm while Cena's on the ladder. Just ton of crazy spots you could think. And I'm really excited, I got to say, about Cena and Styles. Like, that is going to be something else. So I came up with the fantasy booking scenario too. Late last night, I was like, man, I got to do something over the top that would, be something that hasn't been done in a while. So last week, I don't know if any of you caught it, during the segment with Stephanie McMahon and Teddy Long backstage, Teddy was, and by the way, I love Teddy Long. If you haven't listened to my interview with him, please give it a listen. We're in the process of trying to interview him again, so that is in the works. But anyways, back to the segment. Teddy was trying to become the GM of SmackDown again, but Stephanie revealed that she would be in charge of SmackDown, which most likely leaves Shane O'Mac in charge of Monday Night Raw. So that essentially leaves Triple H out of the loop, which I'm assuming he'll be doing his own thing at NXT. So just to recap what I just said earlier, Shane will be in charge of Raw, Stephanie will be in charge of SmackDown. So I'm going to fast forward and start exactly where David started. The main event of Money in the Bank. Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So it's a back and forth match. Let's say it's a 25-minute match. And they're starting to go for the finish. So Seth is going for a super kick. Roman ducks, and the ref just gets kicked in the head and is out cold like a block of ice. Seth turns around. Roman's going to go for the spear. Seth dodges it. Roman Reigns, his shoulder hits the ring post. Seth grabs him, hits a pedigree. The crowd's going wild. He's trying to wake up the ref. He's trying to wake him up, but the ref just isn't waking up. So out comes Triple H. He's yelling at Seth, hey, I'm going to count. I'm going to count. I'm going to count. So Seth's just like, okay. Gets on top of Roman, hooks his leg. Triple H begins to count. 1, 2, and just stops. Roman Reigns didn't kick out. Seth was about to become the world champ, and he just stops. So Seth looks at him confused. He's asking him why he didn't count again, like why he stopped, and all this and all that. And he's up in his face, and then bam, out of nowhere, Samoa Joe comes in and clocks Seth Rollins with the NXT Championship. Then Roman gets up out of nowhere and does his little hulking up or whatever you want to call it. Superman punches Triple H. He tries to Superman punch Samoa Joe, but Samoa Joe rolls out of the ring. Roman Reigns is looking at Samoa Joe, telling him to get back in the ring. Come on. And then Samoa Joe points at Roman Reigns and tells him to turn around. Then bam, he gets clocked by Finn Balor. So they're all out. Triple H is back up. They're beating up on Seth. They're beating up on Roman. Hell, Triple H pedigrees the referee to keep him out of it. So it's going into a no contest. They're just brutally beating them down. Dean Ambrose comes running out with a steel chair trying to help them. But, the numbers game just catches catches on. They end up losing. So all three, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, they're down. And Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, and Triple H all pose with that NXT championship. And they are just showing that the NXT invasion has happened. It is happening, and it is just vicious. It's not like that NXT one with Wade Barrett and Ryback and Heath Slater. Like, no. This one's a lot more intense. And then in the incoming weeks, you have like, they keep on growing. They're just going to keep on growing. So Bobby Roode ends up coming up and beating down WWE guys, setting up a feud with somebody. Shinsuke Nakamura comes up and starts kneeing people in the head because I freaking love his finisher. Austin Aries ends up coming up and this and that. And originally, so like right after this, everyone's thinking, oh, Shield reunion. Seth doesn't want anything to do with it. He's telling them, no, I'm interested in the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. That's it. I want my belt back. I'm here to reclaim the title that I never lost. So then Roman and Dean, they're just like, all right, well, 2-on-3 handicap match. Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose versus the head of NXT. I don't have a name for them yet. It's not going to be the Nexus because it's already been done. But we'll just call them, I don't even know. Something with the future. I don't know. And 2-on-3, but Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose are like, oh, actually, at the last minute, we got someone to be our partner. They're all, waiting. Then the third man gets revealed. It's Seth. It's Seth versus that new NXT group. The NXT group goes over. Completely beat them. It's not a squash match, but you kind of get the gist of it that they dominated. Then at SummerSlam, you have the rematch. And if they win, they become free agents. And so like all the NXT people become free agents. Obviously, the Shield wins. Then after that, you can have the Shield eventually break up the next night on Raw. Have Seth do what he always does. And then just kind of go from there. And then like during that NXT invasion, because you got to get the title off of Roman, I think whoever wins that Money in the Bank briefcase after one like vicious beatdown, they have him cash in on Roman Reigns. And just go from there. So, David, any comments on my little booking?
Yeah, it sounds like a legit plan. But what really matters here is that, if they're going to take over, you got to make sure they stay on one show, or maybe, no, since this was an invasion, I guess they could be on both shows. But someone's going to have to go over them, of course.
Exactly, and that's why I think, like, having the Shield do it, have them make them all free agents, and then, like, the next night on Raw, they all get broken up, and then eventually have Seth turn on him again, or maybe don't even have him break up. Maybe have Seth feud with the champ or something like that. I didn't get that far into it, but I think everyone would be happy because, that Money in the Bank, I don't know how they're going to book that main event. We'll talk about that maybe on the next prediction show about how we think they should go about it or how we hope they go about it. But because I feel like the WWE, they don't want to take that title off of Reigns, but they don't want Rollins to look weak. And I think that's an ideal situation because they both get the best out of the situation. And everyone's happy too because the Shield's back. And I think a lot of people, I don't know how I feel about it, but a lot of people want to see the Shield get back together one more time. So it would definitely be interesting. So that pretty much wraps up all the topics we were going to talk about today. David, any closing thoughts?
Just keep tuning in for the next podcast. We're trying to get really consistent with it. We let us for a little bit, but now we're back. I feel like that Drake line, going for surgery, but now I'm back again.
Yep.
So we had to iron some wrinkles out. We got those fine-tuned. We got a place. Archive.org is where you will find our stuff. BSSN Weebly.com is where you can go. You can get the latest wrestling news. You can check out the current card for the next pay-per-view, and you can meet the team. You can probably see what we look like. If you want to see my ugly self and Blake,
yep.
Go ahead and check that website out, man. And see what that's all about. And if you keep tuning in and you keep enjoying it, eventually we'll get some products out there. You can sport some BSSN t-shirts and some hats and things like that. And definitely follow us on podcast, or what's it called?
Periscope. Yeah.
There we go. I got it out there. Periscope. That's kind of like the exclusive club right there. The people that get to talk to us on Periscope, the guys that get a little bit of extra. You know, they get kind of an appetizer before the meal, or maybe even dessert after the main course of this podcast. So if you don't have Periscope, definitely download it. Add us at BSSN Sports, not podcast, BSSN Sports, and see what me and Blake have to say.
Absolutely. And we'll be sure to tweet out all those handles and leave them like in the description of this audio clip. And guys, honestly, thanks so much for your patience. We're back. We're reloaded. I guess we're going to redesign, rebuild, reclaim. We've already redesigned. We've already rebuilt. Now we got to kind of reclaim, I guess, our spotlight, our viewers, and all that. We could have done it without you guys. And also, big shout out to the man that edits all of our videos, Elio. We couldn't do it without you, Elio. Thanks so much for uploading our videos in the past and sticking with us through thick and thin. But guys, that pretty much wraps it up. The next time you guys will be hearing from us will be in 2 days. But if you can't wait 2 days, be sure to download that Periscope app. Be sure to follow us on there. It's BSSN Sports. And we look forward to talking and getting to know you guys on a daily and weekly basis now on this show. If you ever want any questions featured on the show, be sure to DM us or email us, and we'll be happy to do that. So that pretty much wraps up this edition of BSSN. Until next one, guys, go Seth Rollins. No, I'm kidding. I hope it's a good match. I'm not biased. All right, guys. You guys have a good one.